we are talking about the opportunity in warehousing, and you cannot talk about warehousing if you don't understand the supply chain of your target market. So this is Pius Mushiru Mugo, the Managing Director of Nabo Capital, and we are talking to Richard Howe, the Managing Director of Africa Logistics Property, or ALP. Richard, the other day you hosted, actually late last year, you hosted a breakfast.
That's true.
On East Africa supply chain.
Yes.
Or rather, how to overcome the challenges of East Africa supply chain.
Yes, certainly, that's right. It was a good discussion, actually. We got some good people along, and we were very pleased with the attendance of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good event.
It was a good event. Yeah, fantastic. Well done for that. You're also celebrating, I think, was it your first or second anniversary?
Second, I think.
The second anniversary.
Yeah,
of your ALP North.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So when you look at just describe to us your view on the East Africa supply chain.
Well, my view on the East Africa supply chain is that it has tremendous potential to improve the lives of people who live in East Africa. I mean, it's not a subject that people feel passionate about on a day-to-day basis, but in terms of delivering a choice of goods at good values to people, those systems, both physical and electronic and software, that make up a supply chain, whatever supply chain you're talking about, those are the things that once they are built and operating, deliver to Kenyans and Ugandans, so on and so forth, good choice of products they want at good prices. You know, if you look at the prices that, even for prices which are for goods which are produced in this part of the world compared to say in Europe, you can still see that they are still very expensive in this marketplace. And a big part of that is because the supply chain is not yet complete or efficient and has lots of costs in it. And you can see an enormous amount of headroom for improving that in this part of the world.
Yeah. Are there some important insights that came out during that breakfast about the supply chain in East Africa?
Yeah, well, I think what was interesting about that was we talked a lot about all the various bits. I mean, we obviously talk a lot about warehousing because that's what we do. But I mean, and that is a big hard lump of infrastructure in a supply chain. But as the word chain implies, the whole thing is only as strong as the weakest link in that chain. And whereas you do have lots of competent companies doing logistics here, you have Kuehne+Nagel, Bolloré, all of these people are here. It was interesting to talk to people like, for instance, a copier. I remember Tim Steele talking about the biggest risk for him and the thing that worries him most is getting the right people trained to work in all of the nodes in the supply chain, and only when you have those people there will it work. So human capital, obviously a big thing, but also just coordinating all the stakeholders in society. I mean, you know, companies like mine can do a certain amount, companies like Kuehne+Nagel can do a certain amount, but you need government to obviously step up and do things like roads, which in fairness, you know, Kenya government is spending a lot on roads. You do see the road schemes around Nairobi improving considerably, integrating the railway into the road schemes properly and efficiently, which perhaps isn't quite so well done yet. Those things all need to be done in order for the supply chain to flow from one end to the other. So yes, it's a complicated thing, but it does deliver great things. And I think the other thing that comes out strongly from those sort of meetings is how quickly technology is driving those things. So I think if you look at business models like, for instance, Copiers, which is an e-business driven, not, I suppose, to your traditional cliched internet shopper who's online looking for top market goods, but Copiers trying to target the vast majority of people in rural Kenya through smartphone apps, cutting out a whole range of wholesalers and delivering goods to those people directly at much lower prices and much more reliably. Those sort of things are coming through into the supply chain here. So you're getting those very innovative solutions which are cutting edge technology. So you're skipping out a whole sort of like stages of supply chain development that have happened in older economies. So you have the capability to jump right to the front of the queue.
Are there some glaring gaps when you look at the East African supply chain?
I think last mile is very difficult here.
Yeah.
It's not something I have to deal with, but I talk to lots of people about it.
Yeah.
If I'm delivering a package to my sister's house in South London, there's an address, there's a postcode, there's a system for delivering it there. I think in East Africa, that last mile is made very complicated because that intellectual capital just isn't there. So it's actually very difficult sometimes to find people. I think the technology guys are working solutions around that. Don't think they're quite there yet, but last mile looks very difficult. And of course, last mile, not just last mile delivery, but once you start running any business, you have to have a whole strategy about returns and all that sort of stuff. So last mile is actually very complicated and it's very demanding. And I think there are lots of exciting companies working in that space.
Yeah.
But I think it's tough.
Yeah.
To get that to work because they're having to do it differently here than you would do it in the European Union or North America.
Yeah. What's currently being done?
I think they're using mapping technology, and so they're almost giving everybody Google pins. I mean, I'm simplifying it because I don't really work in those fields, but I think they're looking at those sort of solutions and attaching to people's phones rather than to physical addresses, trying to make it work like that rather than in this. But they have to build all that. For lots of a warehouse management system. Lots of the companies that use a warehouse, you can take a warehouse and you can buy it off the shelf from a company in the Middle East or in Europe, and you can just install it in one of our buildings, and it doesn't need very much modification or change because it's in East Africa. But clearly, the last mile delivery systems, you just can't buy one from Europe and drop it into East Africa and expect it to work because it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. How do you describe ALP's fit into the whole East African value chain?
Well, I mean, we are essentially a real estate company. So we provide that big, expensive chunk of supply chain infrastructure. We try very hard to explore ways of being more than just a landlord. So we are looking at working with people in terms of perhaps providing people with additional services in partnership with some of our tenants and so on and so forth. So we are trying to find ways of addressing more than just being a landlord. But ultimately, our role in the whole supply chain is to provide that sort of distribution centre hub around whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's last mile or whether it's traditional retail, or whether it's running a very cutting-edge e-tailer like Copier, for instance. We try to make sure that our buildings are fit for purpose for all of those people.
Besides the role that you're playing in the supply chain, who are the other key players in the supply chain for it to work?
Well, I think there are lots. I mean, I think obviously the logistics companies like Kuehne+Nagel, Bolloré, DB Schenker are very important. They have lots of experience worldwide in running those things. But I mean, as you look at new entrants like Sendi, for instance, are a very interesting company. Just raised a whole bunch more money in a number of countries in East Africa and actually I think throughout Africa. Again, applying quite innovative technology to organising everything from trucks to bikes to everything else. It's sort of like Uber for logistics. Again, a simplification by me, but it's that sort of stuff that's being done. But you do also need the government. I mean, you do need the government to give you a reasonable amount of hard infrastructure in terms of roads, railways, that sort of stuff, and making sure that the private sector can integrate into that on a reliable basis. So, where are those roads going to be? When are they going to be there? How will the railway integrate? Running the container terminal? All those sort of things also need. So there are lots of players, lots of stakeholders, which of course is why it doesn't happen overnight.
If you are a new investor today, considering to invest in the East African supply chain, just maybe focus on one big gap, where would you invest?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's a good question. I mean, I suppose we would continue to invest in warehousing because we just think that is the hub to an awful lot of those sort of systems.
The infrastructure.
The hard infrastructure. I think there are lots of people working away on the software side. I think there's a viable truck fleet. I think the one area that everyone talks about, and we talk about a lot, is cold chain.
Cold chain?
Cold chain.
What's cold chain?
So temperature controlled facilities for food principally is the single biggest thing. And there are people I know who are seeking to come into the market to do specialist facilities for that. And we would do those facilities, and I've talked to people about doing those sort of facilities as well.
Yeah.
The difficulty is they are very capital intensive to set up. So you do need to have someone with a robust business is going to use that. I think there are some players in the market who are growing into that sort of space.
Yeah.
But you know, we've just signed with Twigger. They are in some ways a cold chain supplier in that they are an aggregator of bananas and other products, and they use temperature control facilities, or will do, in our building to ripen those bananas and so on and so forth. So that's a form of cold chain development. But if you're going to have a proper cold chain, so if you want your fish to arrive in your restaurant in central Nairobi, there needs to be a complete cold chain from when it's caught to where it arrives to your plate. So not just a building that I've built with a fridge in it. You need to have proper trucks. The thing needs to have been stored at the port properly. All those sort of things. Again, the word chain implies that it's only as strong as the bit that is weakest. So cold chain could do an awful lot. Agriculture is very important in East Africa. Minimal amounts of cold chain and organisation could cut down. I mean, the spoilage rates that people quote to you, which you vary enormously, but they vary anyway. I've heard anything between 40 to 60%, which is an enormous amount of product to lose because you haven't got proper cold chain.
Proper cold chain.
And cold chain doesn't necessarily have to be at the farm level. It can be very simple in terms of just a building which just stops the stuff from overheating in a very simple way while it's being waited to be picked up by the first refrigerated truck that comes along. But if there's nothing there at all, it just cooks in the sun, and the farmer's hard work is lost. Yeah. So these are, I think that area is an area that people are looking at very hard. We'd obviously like to participate in it, but as I said, again, even more capital is involved in doing that.
More than what you're already doing.
Yeah.
On the software side, any particular opportunity that?
Well, we've talked about mastering last mile in East Africa. I think that is the bit that's being worked on really hard. I think a lot of the other sort of software elements, for instance, like logistics companies, they have all that. It's been done and written. ERP systems that then integrate back into manufacturers. Again, it's been done. There's no reason to reinvent that particular wheel. Just get it from somewhere else and use it. So I think it's those sort of things like last mile, but also where people like Cindy are trying to break the traditional models and have a new distribution model which relies on the internet copier. Their smartphone app, driving it all through that. Again, cutting out distribution layers, but also as a sort of solution to that last mile solution by using a local agent with a local knowledge of that particular village to be essentially your last mile distribution. So lots of solutions being worked on that side of things.
Having worked in Russia, how do you compare the East African supply chain and the Russian supply chain?
Well, the Russian supply chain doesn't have some of the challenges. So for instance, it has a very European style system of addresses. So last mile, not difficult. What was difficult and what the business I worked for focused on was that the Soviet Union didn't have any sort of proper distribution model in between. So it was all factory to shop, which was horribly inefficient. Well, they didn't have properly operating markets because obviously it was a communist country. And therefore you just didn't have a proper distribution network within that. So you had quite a high level of product manufacturing, and you had a reasonable level of retail distribution, and you had the address infrastructure for last mile, but that middle section of a modern distribution network based around warehousings was completely absent. It just wasn't there at all.
I think we'll take a pause there.
Sure.
I think you've heard that there are lots of opportunities in the East African supply chain. You can choose to go the hardware way, where you can go into the infrastructure of storage, like what ELP is doing. You can also go the cold chain way, where it's even more capital intensive, as you put it. And the biggest challenge that we're facing is really the last mile, and that's why you need the software. And I know there are a lot of guys out there who are working on the technology side to try and sort this out. So lots of opportunities in this whole East African supply chain. I hope you have learned something and you're inspired to take a participation in it and make a return for you yourself and your investors. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned in for the next series.